Hey guys, welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator on the Xbox Series X. Today we are in Pahokee and we're going to be doing a flight to X-Ray 14, which is La Belle, a little airport, 2 airports in Florida, not very far away. The purpose of this video is to show you guys the real life checklists. Well, almost the real life checklist for the Cessna 208B Grand Caravan. So I've printed out some checklists extracted from the pilot's operating handbook, and I'm going to follow them through, show you sort of a more realistic simulator approach to flying this aircraft. Not how the game does it, because the game sort of simplifies it a bit too much. So that's what we're gonna do, and I'll put the link to these checklists in the description of the video. So we're here on the ramp, and we're gonna do it all the way. So first checklist is before engine start checklist. Let's read through it. Pre-flight inspection, that's complete. Parking brake set, yes, down here. Switches off, yes, they're off. Ignition switch to normal. So we have it here. It's normal. Fuel tank selectors, both on. Both on. Bleed air heat switch off. It's off. Power lever to idle. It's idle. Propeller RPM full forward. Full forward. Fuel condition lever to cut off. Cut off. Fuel shutoff valve on. It's down here. It's on. Battery switch on. So down by the side here. It's on. Wing flaps handle up. In the throttle quadrant, yes, it's up. Smoke and seatbelt seats as required. We don't need it. And the before engine start checklist is completed. Now the engine start checklist. Battery switch on. It's on. Beacon light on. Avionics number 1 on. It's on. EIS parameters, we're going to wait for the right hand screen to boot up. Press enter. Everything is fine. Oil PSI is flashing because the engine is not turning. Bus volts 24 minimum. Down here we have 25. Propeller area is clear. Fuel boost switch on. It's on. Starter switch to the start position. There we go. Okay. Now we must check that the NG is stabilized at 12%. That's going to be over here. It's stable at 10%. That's what Flight Simulator gives us. Fuel condition to low idle. It's in low idle now. And then we must check that the turbine temperature is within parameters and the NG is stabilized at minimum 52%. So currently we have 50, now it's in the green. And we have 60. And it's stabilized at 60. So that's good. Starter switch off. It's off. EIS is normal. Generator load discharging the to the battery, so that's good. Fuel boost switch now back to normal. It's normal. Avionics 2 on and nav lights on. That is the engine start checklist completed. Now we would get on the radio and announce our takeoff. So I'm not going to do that. You can do it however you like. Runway is in use is runway 18. gonna put the heading bug there. Now for our route, we're gonna have to leave this airspace on a 273 radial, 273 heading, which is 266 radial due to the magnetic deviation from the Papa Hotel Kilo VOR, frequency 115.4. So I'm gonna tune that on nav 1. 115.4. Swapped. It's identified. I'm gonna move my course needle to that heading. .266. There we go. And we're gonna basically climb to 2,500, so I'm gonna bug that as well. And that's it. We're gonna fly around 40 miles, descend at around 35 DME from the Papa Hotel Kilo VOR. Our destination is 40 miles away on the DME. And that's all. So now we're ready to taxi to the runway. Release the parking brake. Run over this guy here. Alright, so now arriving at the runway, we stop here. We set our parking brake down there. It is set, and we must complete the before takeoff checklist. So let's read through it. Parking brake is set. Altimeter is set. Fuel boost switch to normal. It is normal. Fuel tank selectors are both on. Fuel quantity is adequate. Fuel shutoff valve is fully on. It is. Standby alternate power, we set that to on. Little light goes on. The manual electric trim, it's set for takeoff. The ice protection as required, we do not require. Avionics and radar are all set for departure. Nav source is set for departure. Now, transponder, we should set that to alt. Transponder, alt, we have a VFR code in. Strobe lights and landing lights, on. CAS messages are clear. Wing flaps for takeoff, gonna set that to 20, they're set. Cabin heat, not applicable. Brakes release, we'll do that later. Fuel condition to high idle. So over there on the left side, correction, right side, it's idle. And for the normal takeoff, we're gonna set full power, rotate at 75, initial climb 90, retract at about 1,000 feet. That completes our before takeoff checklist. So now we could release the parking brakes, announce our takeoff on the radio, and move on to the runway. Grand Caravan is awful to taxi in this game. So let's just take it from here. Full power. Airspeed is alive. Engine indicators are green. 60. 75. Rotate. Passing 500 feet, I'm gonna slightly reduce the throttle to keep everything in the green. There we go. We should announce that we're leaving Pahokee airspace, passing 1000. I'm gonna turn the landing lights off. I'm gonna retract the flaps. And we can start turning to our intercept that radial. So for a normal climb and cruise climb, we should mind our RPMs. They're currently in the red. So I'm gonna reduce that ever so slightly. We're good. So the cruise climb 1600 to 1900 RPMs. Power as required, ice protection as required. No further items on the cruise checklist. That it's quite a simple aircraft. So now we can set the autopilot. I'm gonna put on nav mode and there we go. As we capture that altitude, it's gonna set us at an intercept angle to intercept that radial, which is what we want. And we're accelerating. Everything looks good. Once we're established, we're gonna run our cruise checklist. I'm gonna reduce the power a little bit. We're going very quick. Reduce the mixture ever so slightly. And now the autopilot is intercepting our selected radial. Okay, so now that we are established, the cruise checklist for this aircraft is ice protection as required, propeller RPM 1600 to 1900, we have that. Power level as required, fuel balance, we keep an eye on that. And notes, we shouldn't exceed 740 turbine temperature, which is indicated on the right hand side flight display. And for every 10 degrees below -30 Celsius ambient temperature, we should reduce the maximum allowable NG, which is our turbine speed, by 2.2%. Now we're established on the cruise and everything's good. We can just fly the aircraft and do our comms and everything like that. So I'm still here in the cruise, and one important thing to note is that, you know, learning how to use the G1000, I've flown quite a few aircraft using it, so I have some idea. I'm not a Cessna Grand Caravan pilot. Anyway, it's important, for example, in this route, we need to know our distance from this VOR. So we're gonna go to primary flight display, DME, and it's telling us now the DME from nav1, which is tuned to Papa Hotel Kilo, and we have 10.9 miles. If you wanted, you could put also a bearing here to that VOR, which is going to be this little arrow, but I'm going to set my bearing to nav2. And on the map, we can see that there's a VOR close to our destination, which is the La Belle VOR at 110.4. So I'm going to tune that on nav2. And this will help us in real life navigate more safely, have a better idea of where we are. So it's tuned and identified. It is in accordance with our expected position. We have a slight deviation because the La Belle VOR is slightly to the northeast of the La Belle airport. So that's just some additional cruise sort of measures that we can take. Okay, so now we're reaching about 30 miles from the Pahokee VOR. And we're gonna start our descent. So I'm just gonna set the vertical speed to a descent here. I'm gonna cut the power. And our descent checklist is ice protection as required. We do not require. Smoke and seatbelt switches on. Altimeters are set. Nav source is selected. And before any instrument approach, we should set 1900 RPMs. It's not the case for us right now. So I'm gonna descend to 1000. Before landing checklist is fuel tank selector is both on, fuel condition to high idle, propeller full forward, and yaw damper off, and then we set the flaps. I'm gonna do this checklist when we are getting closer to the aerodrome. Runway in use is runway 14, so I'm gonna set that on the heading bug here. We're leveling off at 1000 feet. Getting close to the aerodrome. So now that we're 1000 feet and close to the aerodrome, I can turn on my landing lights. I can put my mixture to full rich. I can increase my propeller RPM. And when we are on base or final, I'm gonna set the flaps. So now I'm gonna enter the traffic pattern. I've disengaged the autopilot. I have the field in sight, right ahead. I'm on the downwind. Can start reducing my speed slightly. And I'm gonna deploy the first notch of flaps. Start my descent. There's our runway.
500.
I can set landing flaps. Final checks, lights are good, mixture is good. Pumps are on. That car is about to commit a crime. Now we cut the power, flare slightly, touchdown. And we are landed. Upon vacating the runway, we set our parking brake, and we must do our after landing checklist. So, wing flaps handle up, ice protection off, standby alternate power off, strobe lights off, taxi landing and recognition lights, so I'm gonna put the landing lights off. I can put the taxi lights on. Fuel condition to low idle, and after landing checklist is completed. We can release the parking brake and taxi to our parking spot. Okay, now at our parking location, once again, we set the parking brake and our shutdown and securing checklist. Parking brake is set, bleed air, heat, air conditioning, everything is off. Power lever to idle, it is idle. ITT is stabilized. Propeller RPM to feather, it's feathered. Fuel condition to cut off. Lights off, they are off. Fuel boost switch off, it's off. Avionics 1 and 2 off, and finally the battery switch off, it's off. We close our fuel tanks, and that is our flight completed. So, thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to leave a comment, if you thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it, that'll be great. And go ahead and download the checklists and enjoy. Thank you.